The valet ticket was still warm in Andre Whitfield's pocket when the front desk manager asked for a second ID. He was dressed simply. A navy quarter-zip pullover, dark jeans, clean white sneakers, a leather backpack slung over one shoulder. 10 minutes earlier, he'd helped a housekeeping cart through a stuck door and waved off the thank you before anyone caught his name. That was how he preferred it. "It's under Whitfield," Andre said, sliding his card across the marble counter. "Penthouse 2. The manager, Dale Prescott, mid-40s, pressed shirt, a gold name badge that caught the lobby light, turned the card over twice like it might say something different on the back. "The penthouse floor requires photo verification for all guests. Standard policy." Andre produced his driver's license without comment. Prescott studied it far longer than the process required, glancing between the photo and the man in front of him, then set it down without returning it. Behind Andre, a couple in matching cashmere checked in without a single question. Nobody asked them for a second form of anything. Andre noticed. He always noticed. "One moment," Prescott said, and stepped toward the back office with the license still in his hand, phone already lifting to his ear. Through the gap in the door, Andre watched him lower his voice and angle his shoulder away, the universal posture of someone saying something they didn't want overheard. He didn't need to hear the words. He'd learned to read the shape of them years ago. He kept his hands visible on the counter, the way he'd trained himself to a long time back, and waited. The woman who came out of the office wore a blazer with a security patch on the sleeve. Older, solid through the shoulders, a badge reading Kowalski. She looked at Andre the way you'd look at a spill on the carpet. Once, then again, slower. "Penthouse floor," she said, letting it hang in the air like a question that wasn't really a question. "That's right. You're aware that floor runs $11,000 a night. I booked it. With whose card? Mine." Andre kept his voice level. "Same as everyone else standing in this lobby." Kowalski slid his license into her own jacket pocket. 22 years in this business. You develop a read on people. And my read on you says something doesn't line up. "Is there a problem with my reservation?" "That depends on you." She leaned one forearm on the counter. "How does a guy your age afford a room like that? Somebody else's points? A borrowed card?" The question was absurd enough that it took Andre a full second to be sure he'd heard it correctly. Near the concierge desk, a man in a wrinkled travel suit suddenly found his phone screen very interesting. Andre exhaled once, thought about the security team gathering, the dozen guests now watching without watching, and the version of tonight he still wanted to have. He opened his banking app, scrolled to the charge, hotel name, his card, the exact rate, dated 4 days earlier, and turned the screen toward her. She glanced at it for half a heartbeat. "Could be anyone's account. It has my name printed on it. Names are easy to put on a screen." She'd already moved the goalpost before he'd finished making his case, because the proof had never actually been the point. Andre understood, in that moment, exactly where the evening was going. He'd stood in smaller versions of this room his whole life. He simply hadn't expected it to happen in a building his own family had built. "I'd like my documents back," he said, "and my key." "You'll get them back downtown, if this checks out." Kowalski nodded to the bellman standing near the luggage cart. "Open his bag. You don't have grounds to search that. On this property, I don't need your permission." It wasn't true, and some part of her likely knew it. But the lobby was full of people who weren't going to stop her. The bellman unzipped the backpack in one motion and laid the contents out across the marble counter for the room to see. A folded shirt, a phone charger, a small leather case holding his late father's watch, which he'd brought to have the strap replaced in the city. Kowalski lifted each item a beat too long, narrating with her eyes. "See what we've got here." Then her fingers found something at the bottom. A slim laminated card on a short lanyard. Andre's executive credential. His photograph. The company crest. The word chairman printed in clean capitals beneath his name. Something in Andre's chest lifted just slightly. "That's my company identification." Look at it. Really look." She glanced at it. She saw the crest. She saw the title. She saw the face matching the one across the counter from her. She dropped it back into the open bag. "Fake, or stolen. Guys like you don't run a place like this." The cruelty of it was almost clean. The literal answer to every question she'd asked had been sitting in her own hand, and she'd thrown it back like garbage because it didn't fit the story she'd already written before he'd said a word. A young desk clerk, Priya Anand, stepped closer with 2 bottled waters still in her hands. "He hasn't done anything. I checked him in myself 20 minutes ago." "Stay out of it," Kowalski said, not turning. "Security matter. He's been standing here answering questions. One more word, and you're off this shift." The tone cut the air flat. Priya's mouth closed, but her eyes stayed on Andre, an apology she had no power to make good on. The lobby doors opened. 2 uniformed officers crossed the marble, radios hissing. Kowalski straightened, squared her shoulders. She had her audience now, and her backup. "You're going to need to come with us," she said. "On what grounds?" Andre asked, still standing calm at the counter. "On the grounds that I said so." Andre felt the old trap settle into his body. Resist, and the footage shows a struggling black man. Freeze, and they walk him out anyway. There was no version of stillness that saved him here. So he made his choice. Set his father's watch case gently back inside the open bag, raised both hands slow and visible, and spoke clearly enough for every phone already lifting around him. "I am not resisting. I want everyone recording this. I am not resisting." "Smart," Kowalski said and took his wrist. The cuffs closed with a cold, mechanical bite. He had shown a license, a bank statement, a company credential, and he was being let out of a hotel that carried his own family's name in the paperwork nobody in that lobby had bothered to check. They walked him past the fountain, past the check-in line, out through the revolving doors into the wide, bright stare of the valet stand. A child's voice rose from somewhere near the luggage carts, clear and unfiltered. "Mommy, why do they have him in handcuffs?" No one answered her. Andre sat on the low stone bench by the entrance, belongings still spilled across the counter behind the glass. One of the officers laughed low, once, at something the other said. A parking attendant polishing a nearby railing caught Andre's eye and gave the smallest nod. Andre nodded back. Then he reached into his sleeve pocket for the phone they hadn't thought to take and dialed a number he knew without looking. "Holdgate Legal, this is Renata." "Renata, it's Andre." He kept his voice low, angled away from the officers. "I'm outside the Meridian entrance. I'm in handcuffs. Security pulled me at the front desk and cuffed me in front of the whole lobby." The line went silent for exactly 1 breath. "I'm leaving the office right now. Don't say another word to them until I'm there." Kowalski had clocked the call. "Who exactly do you think you're phoning? A lawyer's not going to move any faster than processing." "Not my lawyer," Andre said, calm as still water. "General counsel for Holdgate Hospitality." Kowalski laughed, short and sharp, and then a black car swung hard into the drive, and a woman in a charcoal coat crossed the valet lane at a near run, heels striking pavement like small gunshots. Renata Cole didn't look at Kowalski. She dropped straight to a crouch in front of the bench, eyes going to the cuffs first. "Mr. Whitfield, who put these on you?" "Ma'am, step back," Kowalski said. "This is an active security matter." Renata stood and turned, and her voice carried across the entire drive. "This is Andre Whitfield, chairman of Holdgate Hospitality. He owns this hotel. He owns the building you just walked him out of in handcuffs. His signature is on every paycheck issued from that desk." The silence had a texture. It moved phone to phone through the small crowd until someone near the fountain whispered it out loud. They cuffed the owner. Kowalski's eyes dropped against her own will to the backpack still open on the counter through the glass, to the laminated card-stamped chairman she'd called fake 11 minutes earlier, sitting exactly where she'd thrown it. The color left her face in stages. "Take these off," Renata said. An officer fumbled the key. The cuffs clicked open. Andre rolled his wrists, faint red lines pressed into the skin, and stood to his full height. He didn't gloat. That had never been the kind of power he carried. "You asked me to prove I could afford the room," he said quietly. "I own the building." "Mr. Whitfield, I had no way of knowing. You held a company card with my photograph on it. You called it fake." His voice never rose. "You said 22 years gives you a read on people. That's exactly the problem. You don't get to treat people like suspects until you're sure they're somebody. Respect isn't supposed to depend on what a person turns out to own." Kowalski had no answer left. Andre turned to Renata. "Freeze every booking system tied to security overrides. Nothing moves on that floor until I know how tonight happened and who signed off on it. Sir, that touches every property in the portfolio. 41 hotels. I know exactly how many hotels I own. The order went out within the hour. Front desks in 4 time zones locked their override protocols pending review. 41 properties sat frozen mid-transaction because of 11 minutes at one marble counter. The consequences landed precisely where the power had been misused. Kowalski was terminated within the week and referred to the district attorney's office on unlawful detention and an unconsented search." Prescott lost his position and didn't contest it. In his exit interview, he said the quiet part out loud. He didn't look like someone who belonged on that floor. Hearing himself say it, people in the room said his expression changed completely. The internal audit Andre ordered surfaced 11 prior complaints against Kowalski across 6 years, nearly all from guests of color, everyone previously logged as unsubstantiated. "One person can be cruel on their own," Andre told the board the following month. "It takes an entire system to keep protecting them for 6 years. 3 regional managers who had signed off on those closed files no longer worked for the company either." What Andre built afterward outlasted the headlines. A guest bill of rights posted at every front desk in the chain. You may record any interaction. You may ask why. A request for additional verification requires a documented, specific reason, not a feeling. An independent guest ombudsman office reporting straight to the board. A scholarship fund for hospitality management students. Its first 11 recipients drawn from the 11 buried complaints. His father's watch, the one from the backpack, sits framed now in a small case on his office shelf. Not the most valuable object he owns, but the one he looks at most. If you think respect shouldn't depend on who someone turns out to be, let us know in the comments. What's the first question you think hotel security should have to answer before detaining a guest? And should Prescott have been fired the same day as Kowalski, or was his silence a lesser offense? This is a fictional story created for storytelling purposes. All characters, names, companies, and events are imagined.